Today, I want to walk you through something I've seen confuse even the most financially prepared retirees: how to adjust your withdrawal strategy based on your age. Because here's the truth you already know: retirement isn't one long flat road. It's made up of different phases, different achievements, different challenges, and using the same withdrawal strategy in each phase, that could be a big mistake, and one that can lead to running out of money too soon or leaving income on the table later in your life. So we'll discuss all this together. And if you're new here, my name is Nathan Lee, a certified financial planner who's been helping clients retire for over a decade. I've used all these strategies we'll discuss today with clients over a variety of different time periods. So if you find this useful and would like to support my channel, please consider liking the video and subscribing. It's the easiest way to let me know you want more info like what we'll talk about today. And if you want to talk through your strategy, please click on that link in the description of this video where you can share some information about you, and I'll personally send you a video back sharing my thoughts. It's an easy way for us to start a conversation. So let's get into the video. Over the years, I've helped a lot of people navigate retirement, and one pattern has become crystal clear. Your financial risks and your goals shift as you age. So why wouldn't your withdrawal strategy evolve too? That's what this video is all about. I'm going to walk you through what I call the aged phase withdrawal planning, showing you which strategies work at each retirement stage, and why using the wrong one at the wrong time can potentially hurt your plan. Let's start with the big problem most people aren't even aware of. I like to call this the age phase mismatch. It's what happens when someone sticks to the same withdrawal strategy for their entire retirement, even though life in your 60s looks very different from life in your 80s. So let's set the stage by defining the three key retirement phases: early retirement from 60 to 70, mid-retirement from 70 to 80, and late retirement ages 80 and beyond. Each of these phases has a different risk profile, different strategies, and different spending needs. So let's begin with early retirement at ages 60 to 70. This is without a question your most vulnerable phase. Why? Because of sequence of returns. If the market drops while you're just starting to pull money from your portfolio, the damage can be long lasting. You'll also face a psychological shift. You've gone from saving to spending, and that can be pretty jarring. And in fact, many people spend more in their early years on travel, hobbies, or helping out kids and grandkids. So here, you've got a phase where stability and predictability are key. That's why I like the bucket strategy here. This strategy breaks your money into buckets based on time horizon: short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals. You're essentially creating your own paycheck in retirement and matching it with what you need to do with that money. Let me break down a couple examples for you. In the short-term bucket, this is for emergency, non-discretionary living expenses, down payments for a new car, etc. These are tangible items you know you will need over the next 1 to 3 year time horizon. The best fit accounts are going to be high yield savings accounts, money market accounts, short-term CDs. Your medium-term bucket means you have a 3 to 10 year time horizon. The goals are tangible, but in the distance. These things might be a home renovation or a special vacation that you've been saving for. An allocation for this type of asset allocation is going to be more balanced. This is where you might have 40 to 65% allocated to stocks. You need some growth to happen in this bucket, but you also need to have regular expenses that are going to get paid for. The bond allocation, you can start to build out a ladder to have your medium expenses covered as well, which you're going to use those. The long-term bucket is really for growth, and you will have the most volatility here. This is the bucket that has the goals of 10 plus years away. Remember, if you're just entering into retirement and you're in your 60s, you'll still need this money to grow over your lifetime. This is where you might have anywhere from a 70 to 100% allocation to stocks, and then a smaller portion in bonds. The beauty of this approach is that when the markets are volatile, you know you have a smart place for your withdrawals. We can go back to that clarity and confidence piece I mentioned earlier. People love knowing that they have a smart place to get their money. It also creates a structure for budgeting and removes the fear of overspending in those years. Another beginning strategy is that tried and true 4% rule, but here's where it fails. Bill Bengen, who created the strategy over 30 years ago, has shown that it has been too conservative. Too many people were passing away with too much money. So why is this a fail, right? It's because you could have done more productive things with your money while you were younger and while you were healthier. Go on the trips now, help your family now, give back to your community now. Bill Bankin has actually updated the strategy and has now moved it up to a 4.7% withdrawal rate to accommodate for that. And remember, this is for a taxable account. What this means is if you have $1 million portfolio, you can spend $47,000 in your first year, then adjust for inflation going forward. But if it's in a retirement account, you have to take out taxes, so your actual spendable withdrawal is going to be a bit lower. A lot of people I talk to want a combination of those previous examples. They want to withdraw the most that they can safely from their retirement, but also have a dedicated place to pull that money when they need to use it. And if you don't know where to start, that 4.7% has historically been a good starting point. Now, as you move into your mid-retirement, roughly ages 70 to 80, your risks change. The sequence of return has lessened because you've already survived those early years. Spending tends to be a bit more predictable, and your retirement routine is usually in place. So this is where we shift to a more flexible, dynamic strategy, and that's called the guardrail method. The guardrail method sets withdrawal limits like a floor and a ceiling, so you can adjust based on how the market performs. If markets are strong, you can increase your withdrawals. If they're down, you scale back slightly, but you're not flying blind. It's a rules-based methodology. This method adds responsiveness to your plan. It's a great balance between protecting your portfolio and still allowing it for growth and adaptability. And for many retirees, it helps take the emotion out of the decision-making process, especially when the markets are down. The important thing to think about in the guardrail method is that you need to know where your spending is. You have to know what your non-discretionary spending is each year, along with your discretionary spending. This allows you to have that full flexibility over your spending. Clearly, I'm not going to have you change your grocery bills, which have been stable for the past 5 years, well, accounting for inflation and egg prices and everything else, or your property taxes for your home, or things that you know are going to be stable, right? Some things are just going to be what they are. But going on 2 vacations a year where the market is down considerably, this is where you might want to scale back in those lean market years. Or you can set aside some of those discretionary spending on the good years, kind of like borrowing from the bucket strategy here, and put them aside to ensure you get to go on the trips when the market is down. Obviously, the best way to go throughout your retirement is to actually continue to review your withdrawal strategy throughout your entire retirement. I'm often reminded of some of the great explorers of the world. When Christopher Columbus set sail, he wanted to sail from Europe and find a direct sea route to Asia. Instead, in 1492, he landed in the Bahamas, thus discovering the Americas. And look, we would all be so lucky if we started retirement and our surprises ended up on a tropical island. But the fact remains, he didn't even realize he was there. With technology today, obviously he never would have even done that. He would have mapped out a path and continued to use technology to ensure he was on a course. This is what it's like to have a withdrawal plan. You sometimes start with a good intention, but health issues come, markets change, and other various things happen in life. It's best to be a bit flexible. So a real life example is a client that I've been working with for the past 5 years where we created a plan, but there was a big health event for their spouse, which completely changed the trajectory of their retirement. This really meant that we had to go back to the drawing board to figure out exactly what we were going to do. Thankfully, we had built that into the original plan, but the execution part we weren't necessarily focused on because that was the contingency. We had built in some of those contingencies, but how we approached the actual plan now needed to change. The original strategy here just wasn't going to cut it. So I just remind you that in these type of strategies, these are just high-level guidelines, which leads us to our late-stage retirement in your 80s and up. Now, most people assume this is when they should be the most conservative, but actually that's often not always the case. At this stage, longevity risk, basically the risk of living longer than your money, is naturally declining. Each year you age, statistically, the less time you need your portfolio to last. You might also have more medical expenses or want to start gifting to family and or charities. So this is where I often recommend the flexible percentage method. This approach allows you to increase your withdrawal percentage as you age, especially if your portfolio has grown over the years. It recognizes that your time horizon is shorter and that you can afford to spend a little bit more safely. And it helps you strike a balance between your current lifestyle and any legacy goals you might have. So here's the big insight. What I call the age risk reversal principle. Retirement risk is not the highest at the end. It's actually front loaded. Most of the big risks, market losses, emotional panic, lifestyle changes, they all hit hardest in the first 5 to 10 years of retirement. That's why your withdrawal strategy needs to evolve with age. What protects you in your 60s can hold you back in your 80s, and what gives you flexibility later on would be dangerous if used too early. This realization completely changes how we should think about planning. Instead of using a static, safe withdrawal rate, we need to use age-based phased appropriate strategies. We're just not managing numbers, we're managing real life and changes that happen as retirement goes on. Now, if you're thinking, okay, this all sounds good, but how do I actually implement it? You're not alone. The key is to treat transitions between each phases as gradual, not sudden. You don't flip a switch from bucket to guardrails at age 70. It's a smooth handoff. But there are common pitfalls to avoid. One is staying overly cautious well into your mid or late retirement when you can actually afford to loosen the reins. Another is not adjusting your strategy at all as markets or your health status change. So when done right, this phased approach brings real benefits. Financial security early on, income flexibility later, and peace of mind throughout. And for many of my clients, that confidence makes all the difference in how they live their retirement. Now, I understand implementing these strategies is easier said than done. So if you want someone to take a look at your plan and help you map out the best way to approach your withdrawal strategy, click on that first link in the description to fill out a short questionnaire. Afterward, I'll send back a personalized video with some of my high-level thoughts. It's an easy, no-pressure way to start a conversation. As always, thanks for watching all the way through. If this was helpful, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.